Thank you all for joining us. My name is Jared. I am a writer and editor for a website called DJWORX, formerly Scratchworks. We've been doing technology and gear reviews for 12 years, about the longest running DJ review site. And we're here to talk about how a DJ product gets made, how it gets designed, how it gets built, gets into a store and gets into your hands. We have Native Instruments representatives here. We are not here to talk about Native Instruments specifically. I don't want this to become why does Native Instruments do X or Y, because that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the gear we use, because that's why we're at a show like this. That's why we're at BPM, to play with gear, right? So thank you for joining us and getting out of the noise for a little while, and hopefully it'll quiet down a little bit more as it gets a little bit later. First, I'd like to do a quick introduction for each of you, if you could handle that yourselves, and then we'll start asking questions and getting the whole process started. Cool?
Hi, everybody. My name's Chad Carrier, and I am the product owner for Tractor Software at Native Instruments in Berlin, which means that I'm in charge of choosing the features and bug fixes and everything that goes into the software and kind of controlling how it gets designed and rolled out to the public.
Hi, I'm Steve Parker. I'm the General Manager of Native Instruments UK, and I'm also the Sales Manager for the UK. So I run the office in Shoreditch in London, and I handle the sales throughout the UK and Ireland.
Hi, my name is David Eswin. I'm the Marketing Manager for the UK. So I look after events, sales channel marketing, that sort of thing.
And like I said, my name's Jared, and I'm from DJWORX. Now, the reason that we decided to put this together was because whenever we do a product review, whenever we write a story, whenever we talk about a press release or anything that gets put out by any manufacturer, inevitably someone goes into the comments and says how it could be better, right? If it had an extra knob, if it had an extra fader, if it had a bigger jog wheel, and there are reasons that these things look the way that they do. And we want to spend this time to demystify that, to make it understandable so that the decisions that get made, so everyone knows they're not just arbitrary. Like, Chad doesn't sit down at a desk and just be like, I guess that could be 4 inches. Why not? You know? So the way I want to start this with Chad is when a product's being designed, now not an iterative product, right? Like not the S4 Mark II, you know, but when the F1's being designed, when the modular controllers, the first S4, where does that start? Is it in your experience, you know, products like that, products you've worked on, is it just a drawing on a napkin? Is it a drawing on a whiteboard? Is it by committee? What's your experience with how the idea gets built? And then from there, you know, after it's been designed and been finalized, do you get a test thing built yourself? Do you know, how does that happen until it's a finished product? Okay?
Okay, so we start basically by trying to identify an unmet need, something that DJs need. Now, a lot of times this can be difficult because DJs a lot of times say what they want. I want feature X, I want feature Y, this. But we have to try to dig down and figure out what problem is that solving and what problems and pain points do DJs have every day. And so that becomes the center of a new product. So something like the S4 was designed because we looked and said, like, people need a fully integrated one-piece solution instead of having to take around a mixer and separate decks and everything and trying to configure it all so it works together. There needs to be a one-piece plug-and-play solution that just works straight off the bat. And so that was the impetus for the S4 idea. But then we start iterating in many different ways because we identify a few key things that the product must have, because every DJ needs a play button, for example. And there's a number of mandatory features that need to go into every DJ product just from the start. And so we identify those, figure out how much physical space they take on a device, because we also have physical limitations to consider. Someone wants a one-piece product, but they want it to be portable. You know, so we can't make it as big as that table over there. It has to be something small. And so we have to start picking and choosing what When we get the basic features in, what extra bits can we put in that still fits and satisfies the majority of DJs? Now, this is the problem. You know, you always keep saying, where's feature X, feature Y in this thing? And it's like, yeah, we could have put those in, but we need to make sure we get something that satisfies the most people in one product. We can't make 500 products to sell to 500 people. We need to make one product to sell to 500 people, right? So, yeah, it starts visually. We usually work digitally in like Illustrator and stuff because we can already work in a perfect sizing. We already know that this is a certain number of millimeters wide, tall, and we've already got knobs that are the exact size they need to be, so we can start putting together designs that way. And this is done by committee. Like one person will usually draft out maybe 3 or 4 ideas, and then our entire product design group will get together and review these ideas and look at them and start, you know, poking holes in it and like, you know, well, how would I be able to do this? And that doesn't make sense because you have to reach, you know, shift is down here, but the button you want to hit's way up there. These, you know, so we print them out full size to scale so that we can also check, you know, how close are controls? Can you still get your hands in there? All these physical things that need to be considered. And we even do prototypes. So we do have this new digital, you know, 3D printers, so we can prototype certain components. The F1 you mentioned was a big prototyping exercise. Those pads that are on there were chosen from like a myriad of probably more than 30 different pads we could have made. And so we had custom mold pads. I don't know, you might even remember this, Eric, where each one felt different when you pressed it because it had a different mechanic behind it, a different way of building it. Some pushed harder, others wiggled. You couldn't press them in the corner. Others were too easy to hit. And so we review all these designs until we find, that's the one. And that's the one that ends up going in. And we do that for all the components until we finally say, yeah, that's a good knob with a good indicator that we can see in the dark, you know, and build it up from there. And eventually at some point we have to say, that's the one. And that's when it starts going into actual development with the hardware teams. Yeah.
So something I've always been curious about is when the hardware is so directly linked to the software design, right? You have the F1 with remix decks, the original S4 with sample decks. Is that the software is done? Like, is it that, obviously the software is never done, but is it that the remix decks were decided to be 4x4, so you decided you had to make a controller for that? Was it that the sample decks were 1x4 and you had to put that into the S4? Is it you had the design for the S4 and how do we make the software work with that? Or is it both or is it neither?
Sorry, I need the mic. Yeah, it can be either. In some cases, we have a hardware feature, a software feature, and we find that we need to create a hardware device to match it. And so when you look at something like the D2 or the S8, our new controllers with the 4 faders for controlling the stems and stuff, we did that because we needed to have a good stems controller for when the stems became available in software. But believe it or not, the F1 actually went the other way around. Really? Yeah, that one actually, the hardware was kind of designed first, and we fit the remix deck design around it. So it just depends. Sometimes we start with, like, as a DJ, I want a certain physical experience when I'm working, and what could that become in software, and then other times it's the other way around, like the software feature leads the hardware, which is what happens most of the time. Yeah.
So product's been designed, right? Product's been finalized. Everybody that has a say has had their say, and all the changes have been made. And then it has to get into a store. It has to get into the consumer's hands, and that's where you come in. So a couple of things that I want you to talk about in this is when the product's been done and you need to sell it, or get someone else to sell it, is it, you know, what's that method? Is obviously Native Instruments doesn't do trade shows. I don't see you guys at NAMM hawking the S4 at a Guitar Center. But beyond even that, what's the current state of that market, right? We have brick and mortar stores are becoming less and less important. Everything's being done online. You guys are selling tons of product just straight from your website. So how has that been changing? Where do you see that going? You know, and how is that impacting how products are being sold?
You may have to remind me of some of those points in a minute, but So basically, we have a network of dealers. So I'll talk about the UK, but this is fairly specific for around the world. So in the UK, we have around about 35 accounts, which amounts to about 50 to 60 stores across the UK and Ireland. So these are contacted by our sales guys, so 2 guys on the road plus me in the office. And we keep them up to date with what's happening. So they'll be briefed. Obviously, our sales team in NI gets briefed on products 3, 4, 5, 6 months in advance of it even being announced, and we'll tell our dealers products are coming possibly a month in advance, and then we start to give them more and more information as we get closer to the release. So the idea there is you have a network of dealers across the country, and you have the products in the stores on the same day. Now, you said about internet stores versus bricks and mortar stores. Actually, it's over the last couple of years, it's become more important for us to support the bricks and mortar stores. So they have the products on demonstration, the guys know how it works, because these things need explaining. So obviously you can do a lot with videos online and via YouTube from ourselves, but you still need a guy with the customer in the store saying, okay, this is what you're going to do, this is how it's going to work for you, and et cetera, et cetera. So we've made quite a big effort over the last 2 years, really, to expand that. So, we now do a lot of training in our office in London. We get guys from stores down, they get shown how things work, and we bring them, give them products in advance. So, for example, with the S5 is a good example. We just did training, was it last week? So before the S5 was announced, we had 15 dealers in the office in London. We showed them the S5, we trained them on the S5, and then we had to send them from London back to their stores without anyone actually obviously seeing that they were carrying an S5 across London in traffic. So yeah, it was interesting, put it that way. There was a lot of brown paper wrapped around boxes in the office, because at the end of the day, if the S5 gets leaked by someone taking a picture of a guy on the underground in London, then I'm the one that gets told off. So yeah, so that's the basic of internet kind of retailing. So we do obviously have some internet retailers, but we prefer bricks and mortar stores as far as possible.
And are you seeing a shift in how people are buying? Now, the internet in the last couple of years is really, I can go on. In the US, I can go to a number of different stores. I don't have to, if I go into a Guitar Center, the eponymous for us, the biggest kind of store, I might not see those controllers or be able to use them, or they'll be there, but they won't be plugged in and no one will know how to use them, because that happens for any market, any developer, not just Native Instruments. Are you still seeing the return from physical stores? Or is it moving more toward the internet, or is that just a myth that we're all perpetuating, that nobody buys anything in physical stores?
I think there's a mix, is the short version. I mean, because we're in technology, obviously, we started selling software. I started working with Native Instruments in 2001, so at that point we were just selling software to stores. So you can imagine, you think at that point everyone's like, okay, you're selling software, eventually it's just going to go online only, direct. But there was still, even still today, people want to go to stores and pick up a box of software. Even though it's the same thing in every store. It's not like there's a guitar where there's a variant between the guitar in this shop and the guitar in this shop. And I think because of that, we were able to prepare for it early. So we got used to the fact that you'd have internet versus or working with retail. So we started doing that back in the early 2000s. At that point, everyone was always saying, no one will ever buy guitars online. It wouldn't happen. It was like there's no way, if you're a guitarist, you're gonna not want to try that guitar out before you buy it. So I think it hit the guitar market different to us. So they were more kind of shocked by the fact that actually people would just buy a Strat online because it's slightly cheaper from this dealer. And so that's one thing we were able to prepare for earlier. And I've started to go on a tangent. I'll pass back.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, the product gets in the store and hopefully someone buys it. And especially with the way that Native Instruments has been making changes to the workflows and adding new features, stems, remix decks, after sample decks, adding in those kinds of things, modifiers in the controller manager. DJs have a tendency to be hesitant to accept change, especially in workflows like that, beyond the comments that we get on our website of, it doesn't have jog wheels, so it's obviously not DJing, or it's not a turntable, so it sucks, et cetera, et cetera. For David, what's the kind of work that needs to be done to get a user comfortable with these new ideas and this new process? You know, where does that start with both the messaging side from Native Instruments promo videos or any manufacturer's promo videos to the walkthroughs on the website or YouTube or product specialists going to stores? How do you convince the user that this is a good thing to invest their money in?
Well, I guess in the first place, you've kind of got a product that's been created because there's a demand for it, right? And then, you know, Native Instruments is generally looking towards the future, making new tools that maybe not everybody is aware about or starting to adopt, or is maybe enabling more to happen that has been possible before. So there's this kind of shift in thinking. So yeah, we have to kind of first of all think, well, who is the target market? You know, who wants this product? What are they thinking? What are they trying to do? And you generally build a message around that, come up with some good slogans that kind of inspire you to kind of create, or, you know, sort of say, well, this is about, you know, our hashtag future of DJing. You know, that's been something that's a huge umbrella term for what we're trying to do, is trying to enable new tools, new sort of workflows. And then it's a case of education. I think probably, you know, I was kind of surprised by this, but actually education is probably one of the most powerful tools for us. You know, we're dealing with complicated tools. You know, it's all DJ products have a learning curve, and especially when they don't look like something that you've seen on TV your entire life. You know, and then it suddenly looks like something that maybe belongs in a studio. You have to kind of say, well, you know, actually, you know, for the people that have grown up in that age, they kind of see it and they say, well, that's exactly what I need to do. And then you just need to kind of demonstrate the result. And you just say, well, here you go. Here's someone really amazing doing something really cool. And that's the first, you know, the starting point, isn't it? To say, this is something that you can do with our products. And then I think, you know, the trouble with that is that those things tend to be incredibly skillful. So then you have to kind of think, well, we've got a hell of a lot of work to do here to kind of help people achieve this. And, you know, we work with education partners and media partners to try and create content that will actually explain that. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are incredibly good at explaining those things. So we work with them, and, you know, we do our own sort of education platforms. We try to work with the community, and I think we're one of the companies that probably spends maybe the most amount of effort on artist relations, where we work with artists, because, you know, it's a perfect way to show a case study, you know, to say, well, this person's using it in this way, and actually this person's DJing with it, but this person's actually got a drummer coming in on this channel, and you know, something that you think might be a DJ product is actually being used to you know, a simplified version of something that you would expect to have to do with a whole back team and a back line, and now it's possible in a piece of DJ software. So it's about, you know, if you look at it, it's got a bunch of faders, a bunch of knobs, and some screens, and without, until someone starts explaining that and showing you what you can do, you know, it's very difficult to really understand that. So that's the biggest job, I would say, education.
And then that makes sense, because if people don't know how to use it, they're not going to use it, right? Now, before we open up for questions, I have some, I kind of want to pull from, you know, you've all been in this industry for a long time. You've worked on many things, and I kind of want to know, for you, Chad, like, is there, and feel free to tell me you can't tell me, because I know how these things go, but is, in your time working in developing software and working with hardware, is there a feature or a thing that you have seen as wanting to be the future that you have not been able to get into a product yet? That you want, that you think DJ software needs? Not Tractor, but the way that we approach DJ software, the way that we use it. Do you think that, or what do you think really is the future of DJing?
Okay, well, I was just over at a panel where we were discussing something very similar. And for me, the thing that's coming, or the kind of next unmet need, is for the producer DJ. DJ technology has been growing in the digital realm, and there are so many similarities to all the production tools that are out there. You know, there's a delay in Tractor. There's a delay in Ableton. There's a delay in Cubase. It's all the same stuff. So by being a DJ and using these tools, you're already learning production, right? You're already becoming familiar with it. And with advents of things like automatic sync in Tractor, you find yourself with a lot more time on your hands now when you're DJing, and you can start experimenting with some of these more production-oriented techniques. And so that's where I see things. I mean, stems, our new stems format was the start of this, right? How can you sit there and produce your own music while some other song is playing in its entirety on another channel? You know, well, what if you could take out the bass line and then pull up a synth and start playing that bass yourself live on top? That would be hot, right? You know, and these kind of ideas, I think, are what's going to at least allow a new breed of DJs to separate themselves from the crowd, because now instead of just saying, I'm going to play this song and good transitions and a nice flow and everything, they're going to be doing something that's much more closer to a live performance, like when you actually see a band play on stage. And that kind of personality and the improvisation that can happen, where every performance that you go might have something new, can bring a new excitement into seeing a DJ perform. And so that's where I think we're going to be kind of going in the future, especially with the pedigree of Native Instruments, with all its production, you know, stuff. But we see it everywhere. I mean, you just have to go out on this floor. You know, this is a DJ show. Yet there's Novation over there. There's Korg over there. There's Roland over there. These are not DJ products. They're producer products. But damn it, you can sync them up and you can use it all together to make great music. So the line is slowly disappearing between the two. Yeah.
And Stephen, in this, because since you said you've been working with NI since 2001 as a distributor, and as these products have changed, because they've changed drastically since then, have you seen a resistance from the dealer side, from the people who are selling this product, to carry them? Have they been excited that these changes are happening? I mean, change is scary for businesses, and they see that these shifts occurring. And in your dealings with them, with all of these shifts, have they embraced it? Has it been as universal as that? Or have you gotten pushback that surprised you in that?
It's quite a tricky one, but the short version is no. We've been fortunate to have a brand that people want to carry, and I think as a distributor, when you distribute, which is what I did before, you carry lots of different brands, and the key with selling stuff to stores is to have good brands. You know, you want stuff that doesn't go wrong. You want them to be able to make a little bit of money so they can run a business. You know, all those kind of basic things. But you know, not going wrong is a surprisingly big factor for dealers. Like if you sell them something that keeps going wrong, they will let you know about it, and you will pay for it. So you know, when running native, we've been fortunate to, you know, really not have too many duffers, or you know, whatever the other word is for them. You know, we've managed to have products that, you know, they don't tend to go wrong very often if they go wrong. You know, even software. You know, when we started selling software to dealers, everyone's like, you know, you're never going to sell software. We don't want to sell it. It's just, you know, eventually it's going to go online, and we're not going to stock it. So we had to do, you know, at the beginning we had to do lots of deals and, you know, twist people's arms and persuade them. You know, so at the beginning you had to do that. But as we've brought more hardware through, especially with the hardware, you know, we brought out the X1 in 2009, I think. The X1 in 2009 just went mental. You know, we weren't expecting the numbers we were selling all of it really quickly. And then the S4 Mark 1 just went crazy. 2010 was, you know, the increase in sales was, you know, through the roof. So it changed us as a company overall, you know. So, you know, the amount of turnover that brought through, instead of just doing software and bringing hardware through, was quite dramatic.
And David, has there been, this is always something that I've been curious about, is when these new features are coming through, or even older features, or in the time that you've been involved in both the reviewing technology and selling technology, has there been something that surprised you that's been easy to sell and convince people to use and teach them? Or on the flip side, things that have been challenging that you were expecting, oh, it's just a filter knob, and just everyone's brain exploded and didn't know how to use that, if that makes sense? like your experience in teaching people to DJ with these new products?
Well, actually, from a personal point of view, I've always been wanting to use the kind of the next. I've been wanting to do the blurring the boundaries between DJing and production, and that is something that's kind of taken a long time to kind of be instilled in the minds of people of like wanting to do it en masse, I would say. And I think we're getting to a point now where there's equipment being made that's making that easy. But I would say that was probably something that's been difficult over the years. You know, there's been this big divide between that, you know, and actually the thing that's made things work the best is the stuff that's taken away the risk from doing stuff. So people are kind of like, I want to use that effect. I want to use this beat masher. I want to kind of loop and then do something. But when I turn it off, you know, it's only been in the last, I don't know, 5 years or something like that where, you know, the majority of the tools have been enabling people to do that and sound good, you know. And, you know, there's only very few people that could do that or very few tools that could do that. So now we're seeing stuff that's making that easier, but it's understanding it, like slip mode. You know, trying to explain slip. You know, if you just try and say, well, what's slip mode? It's like something that carries on and then something's playing underneath, but you press that and then it switches over to the other one. But when you let it go, the other thing that should have been playing comes back in, and then actually in the end, it's just like you can turn that on, press that button, and it's going to sound good. And you know, so it's functions like that that were kind of weirdly a hard sell. But in the end, it's just using it and then discovering it. But I think people still don't really get those features, you know, and they're still scared to use them because, you know, you're in front of a load of people. You've just got that gig, let's say, if you're starting out, and then I'm just going to play that track and then play that track, and I'm not going to do anything too complicated because it could sound like a train wreck. So I think those things are still the thing. You know, there's still a very niche amount of people that are going to do these things, you know. Everybody's going to have a go at home and have great fun doing it. And then, you know, the very brave will go out and have a go at it when they get that gig. And, you know, it's just going to take a long time to learn it, I would say.
And so I have to ask this, and we've joked about it for a while, but I have to ask. Our readers many times have brought up to us complaints about the direction of not just Native Instruments, of the industry on hating the past. Now, I don't believe that, but can you respond to that kind of critique is there a hatred or an anger at the past? Or is this just people are just angry that it's changing? If you can...
I mean, you said it, people are afraid of change. So there is that aspect always. Anytime you introduce something new that's bizarre, people can have a negative reaction to it, for sure. We are not trying to leave any aspect behind. We still, I mean, many of us, I started on vinyl only. You know, many of us started way back before any of these new technologies were around. We come from there, we understand it. It's still true to us. So we're not trying to abandon anything like that. But at the same time, we have to keep it moving forward. We have to keep doing something new. And sometimes new is different. And take it or leave it. You know, some people prefer Mercedes over Ford. Okay, fine. You know, sometimes it's just a personal preference, and that's totally cool. But at least for us, in our product design group, we are trying to represent all DJing styles if we can. We definitely don't want to say that, oh, DJing that way is so, 10 years ago, it's not valid. But no, nothing is invalid if it sounds great and makes people happy. So we're looking to find new ways to allow people to do creative things, but we don't want to destroy any of the heritage that has been there along the way. Not at all. Not at all.
Good. So, does anyone have any questions for these guys about the process, about... I'll come to you. I'll move.
Sorry for this. It's a quite specific one. When you conduct UX tests, what scale do you use? And what are the focus groups? So is it really artist focused, or are you also asking kind of people that you know that they are good, but they don't have any gigs or something like this?
And you were just asking in the context of testing, or in the... Oh, UX. Okay, yeah. So for the user interaction, we are checking everybody across the board. Yes, there are tier 1 artists, like mentioned. We do get to work with a lot of very important artists and make sure that the workflows work for them. But we do recognize that there's a lot more people out there than just those guys who want to DJ. And so we do check on all levels, bottom to top. I mean, we even, with stems recently, we found as many non-DJs as we could to actually come in and say, does this visualization make sense? You know, here's a controller. Can you turn off the drums and see how long it takes them to figure this out to make sure that things are as intuitive as they can be? Because if you're not a DJ and you can figure it out, then a DJ can definitely figure it out. So we do want to check at the bottom rung to make sure we haven't done something that is so screwy and so unique that only this, you know, one artist needs when he's playing in Ibiza. We want to make sure that everyone can get it from the ground up. Yep.
Anybody else? No? All right. So thank you guys for doing this with us. This has been a lot of fun. I hope that someone out there takes some heed into the answers and the questions that we've been asking. And good luck to you guys in the future. And we'll be hoping to do stuff like this again.
Thanks.
Thank you.